All right, welcome back. Another edition live at Drew's house. Hope everybody is doing okay out there. The snow has come, and there's still a lot out there. It's slippery, but hope everybody's doing okay. Pandemic-free and all that good stuff. Coronavirus-free. Hope everybody's healthy. I'm going to get right to my first guest because we are ready to rock here. The Handel and Haydn Society just named Dr. Anthony Trecek-King the new resident conductor. How about this? He's here to join us. How are you, Anthony? First time on the show. How you doing?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
Doing good. How's pandemic life? Everybody healthy? Everybody doing okay?
So far, yes. In my family, even extended family, we've been able to avoid the COVID. So we're all healthy and happy. Well, maybe not happy, but at least healthy.
Yes, it's weird if nothing else.
That's right. That's right.
Pandemic living. But congratulations on the new title. What does this bring?
Thanks. Well, I mean, it's a really cool organization. It's been around for such a long time, 200 plus years, and to be a part of that storied history is really kind of cool. Really kind of cool. And honestly, it was a little unexpected too. It wasn't like something that like I knew was going to happen for sure or whatever. So it's nice to be a part of that.
One of our mutual friends said, I think you'll like this conversation. I think he's a bit of a rock star in the business. You'll enjoy talking some music with him. So I said, oh, well, that's cool. Bring him in.
Well, that's great. That's great.
You got people talking highly of you out there. That's fantastic.
Wow. That's really cool to hear. Thank you.
How about a little bit of the background? Where you're from? How'd you get into music? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'm a little bit weird, I think, in the background because I never intended to be a musician. So I was an Air Force brat. I grew up in weird places like Germany and North Dakota, and that's a big culture shock. And then ended up in Nebraska, where I ended up doing my undergraduate degree, studying engineering in cello performance. Actually, were the two things that I was doing because I didn't want to be a musician, but I had a music scholarship. So because I had a music scholarship, I had to take music classes. But, I was just I wasn't goofing off as in not taking them seriously, but, certainly was focused more on the engineering. But at some point I was like, you know what? I don't really want to become an engineer. So now what? And I had already moved along enough in music that I thought, well, let's just kind of seek this out and see what happens.
Was there a moment that you can remember when maybe somebody else told you, I don't know, maybe somebody noticed it first, but was there a moment when you said, you know what, I'm a little bit better and it's coming a little bit more naturally to me than even I suspected. This is kind of something I'm good at. Was there like a hit moment where you said this could be a career?
Yes, there was. So the department chair in Nebraska, his name was James Saker. He called me into his office one day and he sat me down, and I thought I was going to be in trouble because maybe I wasn't taking it as seriously as I thought. He said, you're doing really well at your conducting. And because at that time, all the undergraduates had to take conducting classes, and you weren't good at it. You really weren't, because you're just kind of learning chord patterns and things like that. But eventually, he kind of planted the seed in my head of maybe that is something I could do. And the other question they asked me said, "Have you ever seen anybody who looks like you on the podium?" And at that time, the answer was no, I hadn't. He said, "It's just something I want you to think about." And that planted a seed in my head that eventually grew into this passion that I have today. And yeah, I mean, playing the cello was great, and I still play it. You can see it behind me here. But what I noticed is that the conducting bits of it did come a little bit easier for me than perhaps some of my classmates.
Interesting. Wow.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of things I want to touch on. I do, before I forget, you mentioned being an Army brat. What is that like, being able to bounce around and see all these different places? Do you get sick of the travel, or did you at some point embrace it?
Oh no, I actually love it. And like, that's my pastime. This is the worst part about the pandemic, is not being able to travel. I haven't traveled in over a year. Usually I'm traveling for like 3 or 4 months, outside the country. So I absolutely loved to travel. It was great. It did stink though, because, when you're in school and then all of a sudden you get uprooted, you have to find a new friend group. So I find that I'm a little detached when it comes to, friends and things like that, because, they would just disappear, or I would disappear.
You must have a very active Facebook. I imagine that becomes very busy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, from all over the language that's spoken on my Facebook page is pretty fun to watch.
I was gonna say, if you even have Facebook. I know there's some people detaching from these things these days. So.
Yeah, right.
But good for them if they want to do that. That is fine as well. So that's interesting. So your mentor there said, or I don't think he used the word mentor, but you said he kind of told you. You brought up the fact: have you ever seen somebody who looks like you? Is that still a breaking of a barrier? Being you must take a lot of pride. I'm not sure what the percentages are of Black conductors out there, but it's got to be a prideful thing for you, right?
Yeah, it is. It is. And I knew early on that, part of my role is to kind of be representative in the field, and to be a voice. And, it just kind of comes with the territory. And especially with the Handel Haydn Society in early music, historically informed performance practices like what Handel Haydn does with its orchestra and chorus. There's not a ton of people in that world, people of color in that world. So it is I think important. In fact, when the announcement was made, I received phone calls from all over the country going, "Wow, this is actually a really big deal. I'm glad to see someone who looks like me being a part of that organization." And Handel Haydn has definitely been moving in that direction over the last couple of years, and it's a big part of actually their history as well. I mean, being a part of the abolitionist history. I mean, I'm not fully ingrained into the history of the organization, but certainly I'm aware of the things. I mean, they played for Abraham Lincoln's funeral. I mean, it's a really big deal what this organization has done over the years.
Yeah, it's crazy. What do you see as a immediate impact? I'm not saying you're going to come in and change the whole thing and put your stamp on it, but do you see like immediate changes that you'd like to really throw right in there in the mix right away?
Yeah, not right away. It's the sense of just I want to get in there and get dirty a little bit and kind of see what is going on and what are the ways that I can best help out the organization. And with Harry Christophers, he's an amazing artistic director and conductor, and he'll be around for another year. And his big contribution, I mean, he's got tons of them, obviously, but one is the chorus itself. Like he's a choral master. And when he leaves the organization eventually, then we want to make sure that we can maintain that and kind of build upon what he's left behind. So I'm looking forward to doing that and working with the rest of the artistic staff on just kind of establishing what is the chorus, what is it going to be moving forward. So, and also it maybe find ways to include voices and faces that aren't necessarily there and represented in the chorus. So that would be, I think, an important thing that I could do.
And I imagine there's going to be a whole different, I mean, we're all changed by this pandemic in some way. I imagine that's going to play a role in some case, coming out of this period in history.
Right. Yeah. I agree. I mean, who knows? I mean, hopefully it's over soon and we can end up returning to the stage and singing in large groups again and getting around each other and so on. But yeah, I can imagine that the landscape is going to be slightly different post-pandemic than it was pre-pandemic.
Anthony Trecek-King joining us again, the new resident conductor, the Handel and Haydn Society. We've talked a little bit about the pandemic, and I do want to ask here's the amateur question of the day. All right, you ready for this one?
Yep.
Maybe you've been asked it before, but as a conductor, is most of the work done beforehand, those practice sessions? I mean, when you're up there leading the way, how much is actually on the conductor? It does seem like all eyes are on you, but is it everybody kind of know what they're doing, or is it really, if you do something different, the whole thing is going to go off the rails?
All right. Well, in a group like the Handel and Haydn Society, I mean, they're so darn good that it's hard to screw them up. You know what I mean? Like, because they're all professionals, and I always have this saying is that orchestras or choirs, they don't really need a conductor, but a conductor needs orchestras or choirs. And so it's more about interpretation than it is about getting it in and kind of screwing things up. So, but if you're working with younger groups or less experienced groups, then you absolutely can get up there and screw it up. I mean, I suppose even with Handel and Haydn, one could get up there and absolutely tank it as a conductor, but that won't be the goal.
All right, good. I got a pretty good answer out of that. I don't think it was not a question as I thought it could have been. That's fantastic.
No. Hey, ask anything. Ask anything.
Coming out of this pandemic, I do wonder. I mean, you used to playing in front of these big groups. I'm sure you've been on stages and in front of audiences your whole life. I know I've had independent musicians on here. I've had theater owners on this show. Mm-hmm. Pretty much by and large, everybody remains very concerned about the live music industry and just how it's going to look like, even when it's given the okay to go. Are people going to come out? And it's going to be the last thing to come back anyway. Just your take on the industry as a whole.
Yeah, people are hurting. I'll tell you that much right now. I mean, musicians are hurting in all genres, and performers certainly. I have a number of friends who, they've lost a significant portion of their income. When the pandemic hit for me, yeah, it was thousands of dollars of income that just evaporates, and you have to find and retool and figure out other ways to kind of make your way through it. And I think a lot of people are doing it. There's a little fatigue in that, also of trying to find something new. But I do think that eventually it will come back. But the question is, what is the kind of short-term and medium-term damage that's been done to the arts? What phenomenal musicians are going to simply walk away? I have a friend who's a wonderful, wonderful tenor, who's retraining to do computer programming. And once you kind of leave the field and you find that financial security someplace else, then maybe it's not so great. One thing that I think we should do a better job of is kind of teaching personal finance and how to manage one's finances so they can mitigate against a pandemic hitting and all of a sudden you losing everything. I mean, I think that's in general, from a general education, we need to do a better job of teaching personal finance, but it's certainly in these fields of like music and the arts, it's a gig economy for a lot of people. So
my wife is a teacher in the other room. I think she's going, yes, I agree.
Yeah, exactly.
It's interesting that you just touched on something. Once you leave the industry, because I've had that theme come up a few times about people having to make those tough decisions and, at least starting to have to think about it, not knowing how long this is going to go on. And you're right. Once you leave the industry, it's very hard to it's a grind anyway, the music industry, right? So once you leave, it's kind of tough to make that jump back. And I fear losing so many great musicians when this is all said and done. Hopefully the majority of them can hang in there, but tough time to be a musician.
Yeah, certainly a tough time.
How about what has been the reaction from the people you'll be conducting over? Has it been all excitement? Has it been, I have a few ideas, let me bounce them off you? Have you already got a bit of that?
No. It's been slow a little bit, which is fine. I've certainly have heard from some of the musicians and members of H&H, and yeah, and it's all been good. It's all been good. I think everybody's just kind of holding their breath till next year anyway, because we're so limited in what we're able to do. But yeah, it's yeah, I'm just, like I said, I'm just looking forward to getting in there, getting dirty, and exploring this organization and kind of finding ways to, reinvent myself within the organization, which will be a lot of fun.
Obviously you're as accomplished as a musician as it gets, but even some of these best singer-songwriters that I've even had on this show have said just getting out there and playing, even virtually, to some of their, virtual things they're doing, that having that pressure of knowing people are watching, and not having that pressure for a while, it's almost kind of like, oh, okay, I can still do this after they play, or they get a response back at them in some way. I wonder, how do you stay sharp through a pandemic? Like, are you just playing on your own? You making sure you get a certain amount of reps? How does that work?
Yeah, for me as a conductor, there's so much that one could be doing right now to further your craft, and it's beyond even just the music. It's exploring literature. It's looking at works of art. It's just kind of allowing the mind to be creative, because that's what we do as conductors, is try to find connections between different various things, whether it's art forms or literature, to the work that we're doing. I'm spending a lot of time researching and learning new music and getting acquainted with different composers that I'm not aware of. And that's how I'm kind of using this time for growth, so that when we're able to jump back in, I've got, okay, let's do this. I've got this idea on this composer. This is a nice little pairing that we can do, so that you can come at it with a lot more enthusiasm.
How does that work from a conductor perspective? I always remember that line that Tom Petty said, where he said, that song there, I think it was the Red Hot Chili Peppers, sounds a lot like your song from 20 years ago. And he goes, I have a whole lot of songs that sound like a whole lot of other people's songs. Yeah. People are always kind of, building off others, and you know how that goes in the popular music world and the rock music world. I imagine there's a little bit of that as a conductor too. You see somebody who you admire, you see somebody that, you really like something that something's doing. Maybe you steal a little bit of that in a good way.
Oh, totally. Yeah. No, you absolutely steal and borrow. But yeah, why not? And that's a great way because I teach conducting at the Hart School in Connecticut. And one of the things I always tell people is watch other conductors. And when you see another conductor, and you see something they did that you liked, go home and practice it in the mirror and do it over and over again until it's part of you. And then eventually it becomes your own thing, right? It's just building up your expressive physical repertoire so that when you're feeling something or thinking something, that the body then responds to it and gives a physical gesture that is a manifestation of it. I mean, that's the cool thing about being a conductor is, I mean, we're making wind. I mean, all we do is wave our arms. But it's more than obviously waving our arms, it's moving our bodies and so on. But it's a physical manifestation of the music is what we're trying to convey through our movements. And how easy can that be conveyed to other people?
And Anthony Trecek-King joining us. A fascinating conversation here. When you get in front of a crowd, God, that almost gives me chills just saying that. Get up in front of a crowd. But when you get up and it's time to go, I imagine it's not like, Bruce Springsteen gets to go up there and count off 1, 2, 3, 4, and it's a rock show and they go. You kind of have to find this like pocket, right? This like you probably have the adrenaline going still, but you probably have to find a way to settle. I'm guessing. What's it like when you're ready to kick off a show?
Yeah, for me, it's all nerves, man. I mean, even before rehearsal, every rehearsal, it's crazy. Like the thousands of rehearsals I've had, every time I get in front of a group of people, I'm nervous. Like
Every
I can't
time.
eat. Yeah, every time I can't eat. I can't. Like I had 2 rehearsals this past weekend, and I was just a wreck beforehand. It's just, and I'm used to it now. But once once it's go time, then I'm fine. But I just know I'm a nervous wreck. But then you walk out on stage and you bow to the audience and turn to the ensemble. And at that moment, to me, it's more intimate than that. Like it's obviously you have an audience back there and they're observing you. But for me, it's the relationship between myself and the ensemble. What are we doing? How are we communicating with each other? And we're going to let other people watch that. That's what to me is what makes it special. And to be creative in that moment, even though you've rehearsed it, 100 times. To find moments where we can be creative together is magical. And there's this point where, and this really works well with a group like Handel and Haydn Society, but certainly other groups, where you as a conductor let go. Like you're just kind of riding the wave, and you're just doing smaller things that have huge impact. So yeah, that's kind of like that nirvana space of just like I'm actually it's the flow state, right? And we're flowing together as a group.
Where you can actually, do you ever get like literally lost in the music up there sometimes and kind of
absolutely
back into it?
Yeah, absolutely. But as a conductor, always has to be, remembering what just happened, be present in what's currently happening, and making a prediction on what's about to happen. So you have to have 3 modalities of time happening at the same time. It's really quite fascinating.
That is fascinating. You're gonna laugh at this. When you talked about those nerves, and then once it's go time, it's go. It brought me back to a conversation. Talk about 2 parallel universes and completely different jobs, but maybe you see some similarities. I had a UFC fighter on here. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Wild sport.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tough way to make a living. But his name is Joe Lozon from Boston. Very big professional, Boston Garden, all that stuff, big wins. And he said to me, I asked him, do you get nervous when you're about to go and, battle another human being? And he said, every single time I think about every wrong decision I've made. What am I doing here? How did I get here? And when the bell kicks in, or I don't know, I don't think it's a bell. I think that's whatever it is that kicks in,
right.
He says, it all goes away. It's just, you guys, you almost said the same thing. It's so funny.
I think that's the first time that my process is compared to, UFC fighting. That's pretty cool. I'll take it.
It was, I don't know why it brought me back there. I did that interview about a month ago, and it was fascinating to me that you could be scared and have nerves in a UFC ring. But I guess we all have them when it's showtime.
I think it's human, right? I mean, if you to me, because I played baseball too growing up and in college, and before every at bat, I got nervous. And if I didn't get nervous, it meant that I didn't care, and that's a problem, right? If it's like okay, I actually don't care about this. I'm just mailing it in, and I don't ever want to be there. When I stop getting nervous, I think that's the time for me to walk away.
Yeah, well said. College baseball, man. Is there anything you can't do?
There's lots that I can't do. Yeah, that was fun. That's the one thing that I would do. Like even it's like the Red Sox were to call me up and say, "Hey, you've got to try out." I'd quit everything to do that.
Yeah.
still today. I'm a little, it's past my time, but give me on the, I still swing though. I still take batting practice. I still hit the ball, and
Great game.
yeah, it's a wonderful game.
Dustin Pedroia just retired. I hear
Yeah.
in Boston.
Yeah.
I salute to Petey there. Great career.
Absolutely.
Baseball makes you feel warm when there's snow on the ground too, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
What's the so how many? What is your? How many instruments can you play? First of all, is there a? Is it? I see. Is that a cello behind you?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Cello was my main instrument growing up, so I guess that's the one I played the best, if you will. Piano. So I played cello and piano a little bit. I played oboe for a hot second as well, just to kind of get some exposure to that. Oddly enough, didgeridoo. So I play a little bit didgeridoo and some percussion as well.
Wow, how about that? Is there a what was the first instrument you ever picked up, and what age? Do you remember?
Man, that's a good question. As far as an instrument, I'd probably have to lean towards the cello, and that was at age 10. I sang when I was a little kid, though, right, in elementary school, and did the school musicals and things like that. So sang, but it was at age 10. I remember going to my sister's concert, and she was a year older than me, and she was playing the violin. And I sat there, and my parents were like, "Well, do you want to play the violin?" I was like, "No, that's stupid." But that one over there, that big thing, that looks pretty awesome. So I'll take that. So yeah, it's pretty cool. I was very fortunate because my mother was big on just exposing us to all types of music and allowing us the opportunity to explore it and support that. And without that, I certainly wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, that is cool. I was actually going to ask you that too, because I wonder, a lot of the stuff you play is not mainstream instruments. I mean, it's not the acoustic guitar that's, cool by the campfire. I wonder, is there an element of, are you able to sell that? Because you're obviously an interesting guy. You're a young guy. Are you able to sell it to kids? Can you make these instruments cool? And you know what, there's a lot to this. I think you'll like it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope so. Maybe I'm good at it. I don't know. But yeah, there's so many really cool things about this stuff, though. That's just it. And I would hate for people to feel like there's not an opportunity or a space for them in this world. Doesn't mean you have to love it. I mean, not everybody's going to love classical music, and that's okay, right? I love all music, like literally any genre, as long as it's good, and there's good in every genre, right? So. Handel Haydn Society is good at what it does, like really, really good at what it does. And so, yeah, I think we can sell it. And there's actually some really cool individuals in Handel Haydn Society already that do a great job of selling this to everybody. So yeah, my cello teacher, when I did my master's, was down at Florida State. My cello teacher told me, he said, you're going to be kind of that guy who's going to be in the public eye. And this is really important to kind of sell the art form to other people. And I kind of listened to him and said, that's fine. I mean, I don't mind doing that, because like I said, I want to carve a space for everybody in this world.
Great. That's a great answer. All right. Very good. And is there, you have the cello, and I wonder, you're traveling around as a kid, bouncing around. I wonder, is there a connection between the discipline of being an army brat and learning instruments?
Well, discipline is the right word. Absolutely. You have to kind of be disciplined to go back to it and to practice it. But I was like most kids, though. I mean, you just kind of goof around and be like, okay, yeah, I'll practice. Here's half hour here. Here's 15 minutes there. Let me just kind of goof around. And it took me a while to kind of settle in and go, okay, let's get serious and let's actually learn some things. And it's learning how to practice because they don't really teach you how to practice. Here's what you need to do to practice to become better. And it took me quite some time to figure that out. And I'm glad I have, because again, without that, then it's tough to survive.
I'm sure you've had you're so accomplished. I'm sure you've had other job offers that maybe you've passed on, or just not the right spot in life for you. What was it about Handel and Haydn that you said, yep, I'm in?
Yeah, you know what? It's such a big deal and such a storied organization that when they call, you're going to pick up the phone and go, okay, let's explore this, let's talk about it. And I think it's a good match for me at my point in career and what it is that I'm looking at doing and moving into the world of a more consistent work with professional ensembles. So it just seemed to fit. And it's a nice position, resident conductor. There's another resident conductor. Scott Jarrett, who I'm good friends with as well, and he's there. So it's a great opportunity for me to learn and to be, kind of absorb a little bit and then offer what it is that I have to offer. So I think to me, it feels like a pretty good fit. And I also get to return to kind of my roots, being an orchestral person. I've spent a lot of time working with choirs, and which I love and I wouldn't trade for the world. But it's nice also to come back to being a part of an organization that, there's a professional orchestra that's there and that plays, early music and Baroque and classical music, which I absolutely adore playing. So it's going to be fun for me to be a part of that.
I know there's not a time of year for classical music and choirs, but if there ever was one, the holidays are huge. I know especially when it comes to independent contractors and work. I'm sure you have friends that really got hit hard over the holidays. I've had a few on this show that have said, I made the mistake of looking back at what I made last holiday season. Talk about that a little bit, just how tough of a winter it's been already.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, there with no in-person concerts, and usually the holiday time, especially for choral people. I mean, the holidays is the time in which, Mike at the bar will go see a choir, right? He's like, I've never seen it, but I'm going to go because this is kind of the thing to do, and that's awesome. That's really really cool, and to not have those opportunities to be in front of big crowds and big audiences and be just really busy. It's like December for most musicians is like you get killed in December and then you can relax a little bit at the beginning of January to kind of get rejuvenated, and that just evaporated.
It is crazy. How important to you, by the way, is it to win over Mike at the bar? Are you thinking about Mike at the bar when you look out at a packed house as a crowd? Like, obviously you have the regulars that love you guys. You always come back, but are you thinking about that person that maybe I can really has been dragged here that I can hook in? Like, are you thinking about that?
Maybe not in the performance, but I certainly along the way am thinking about like who might be interested in this, who just isn't yet. And what are the things that might be the barrier to preventing them from becoming interested? It might have a steep entry cost and not just financial, because there's ways to get around that with, some ticket giveaways and things like that. And I know H&H does some great work there, but are there other barriers that are there? And I think about also other people, particularly people of color or lower income folks who feel like this is an elitist art form. Historically, it's not always been an elitist art form, right? You think about like Brahms playing in the salon, just kind of, he was the guy playing at the bar. And this is Johannes Brahms, somebody who we only hear really on the concert stage. And so what can we be doing that kind of opens up people's eyes? And I think a lot of contemporary music in particular is can be more accessible, but there is something special about a period orchestra playing period music that H&H does that I think can be attractive. This is how you talk about it. It's how you kind of position it and say, you know what, this isn't as pretentious or beyond you. It's just a matter of exposure. I wouldn't love it if I wasn't exposed to it either. It's like cricket. Like I love baseball, but I don't like cricket. Well, I didn't grow up with cricket. So, but if I sat with somebody who's enthusiastic about cricket, which I've done, it gets interesting to sit there and they just kind of tell you what's going on. So, how can we do that for other people? That's really, really what it's there for. And if there's some way that I can do it, then I'm all for it. But I also I like to draw parallels between like sports. Like I'm a huge sport nut. Life, any way that we can draw parallels to what people are connected to currently. I think is pretty brilliant.
You've sat through a whole cricket match, is it? Or it's match, right?
Yeah. But one of the shorter ones, I don't know what they call them. Like, but the short, not the week long one that, yeah, that's crazy. And it wasn't good. It was one of those club ones. So, just go to the park and they're playing some cricket.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting experience. Anthony Trecek-King joining us here talking to music. What was the moment? What was the show? Do you remember it when you said, wow, I want that to be me someday? Maybe you looked at a conductor. Was it like one venue, one conductor, one performance? Do you remember that moment, or was there one?
No. There wasn't like a big performance that I can recall growing up saying when I watched it that I was like, wow. There are performances that I were a part of that I was like, wow, this is really incredible. And it's the feelings like, in high school, My high school chorus was absolutely amazing. A guy by the name Don Reimer. We remember these names. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Don Reimer. Or my youth orchestra experience, first time playing Holt's Planets, and you're playing Mars, Bringer of War. I mean, it's just like really intense stuff. And you get done and you've got bow hairs that are all split and you're just like, yeah, sweating. It's like that rocked. I know it's so weird to be getting out here saying like, yeah, but it did. It was like awesome, right? You just bearing into it, and you're physically just exhausted from it. And I always say, like, if you're not physically involved, then you're not trying hard enough. So just being physically involved in what you're doing. So yeah, there's some pretty cool moments in my life that I've had. I've been fortunate.
That is cool. You have some Boston connections too. You were at the, and let me get it. You were the director of the Boston Children's Chorus, right?
Yep.
That must have been a cool experience.
Yeah, it was. I was here. Did that for just over 14 years. When I started, it was very small. It was around 100 singers, and we grew it to about 500 singers, and giving concerts. Selling out Symphony Hall. It was a cool gig. Glad to be a part of that. Some really great kids, and you intersect with some people that are truly amazing, and I just felt really lucky to be a part of that.
Tell me about the not so great kids. Who? No, I'm just kidding.
I can't. This is really funny. There's this one time during one of the choruses, and I hated them, and I told them too. At some point, I'm like, I just don't like you. It was a middle school group, and there was some people going through puberty, and it was awful. It was really awful. I'd go home and you just have to have a drink. It's like, this is terrible. But fortunately, you just keep at it and keep working at it. And the next year it was great. And I actually really loved some of those kids that kind of came through that. But there was a couple of times you're like, I don't really like you. I don't.
It'd be a tough age.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm one more on the kids, because I'm sure obviously you get different rewards by working with professional adult musicians, but was there something that you got from the kids that maybe you don't get from the adults, and was it something that you'll always take away from that experience?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes, and I say sometimes, not always, but sometimes the kids are fearless. They can be fearless, and they'll just kind of try something without you having to explain it too much. And sometimes with adults, you don't get that. But there are certainly, I've certainly had opportunities to work with some professionals that are fearless as well in the same sort of way. But it's different. And I always, and I don't know if this makes me successful or crazy, but I always just kind of treat the kids like professionals. And so I don't really actually have to change, obviously, how you deliver things to a 7-year-old and how you deliver something to an 18-year-old and how you deliver something to a 35-year-old is different. But I really don't think of it is too wildly different. Like I've got to dance for these little kids. It's like, no, there's work to be done here, and we're gonna have a great time while doing it. That's it.
Very cool. Anthony Trecek-King, H&H Society. They're lucky to have you, man. Let me tell you, I'm already impressed.
Oh, well, thanks. Well, I haven't made music there yet. So we'll after my first review, we'll see if we can still talk.
You're going to do great. Do you read the reviews?
Yeah, of course. And then you hate it. When you get anything that's terrible, but no.
What's the worst one you've ever got? You're accomplished enough now. You must be secure enough.
Yeah. If I could actually remember, I'd have to go back and reread that. I'm not sure I can remember it.
You tried to block it from memory.
Exactly.
It is a tough business though, because like I've always thought like the idea of like being a music critic who's like really, really harsh. Like you got nothing good out of that. Like what was wrong with you? Did you have a bad night that night as a critic? Maybe like you're kind of like balancing on like you're up to this guy's state of mind or this woman's state of mind. Like a lot of it always seemed unfair to me.
Yeah, that may be true, but I have to tell you that we're probably far worse on ourselves than the critics can ever be. Right? When you get through it, it's just like, you know what, I missed that, or this could have been better. And I'm always kind of self-critiquing, and it's probably should never end up on paper, that self-talk. But yeah, I can imagine that would be tough to be a music critic, because, and I'm glad I'm not one, because I'm not sure I'd be good at it.
I would like to do it. I just think I don't know. I think I'd be the friend of the musician. I'd probably be a bad music critic. I'd find the good in everything.
Well, I think we probably all are because the things that we enjoy, we go back to, and the things that we don't buy tickets anymore, right? So we just don't write down the reasons why. We just don't stop coming.
Excellent. Well, hopefully we get out of this thing soon, and we can
Right.
all get back to seeing you run the show over there with H&H. I'll be looking forward to that. We usually end this show with some rapid fire, kind of random questions. First thing that comes to mind. You up for it?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. Favorite music artist currently, right now? Who are you listening to the most?
So much for rapid fire.
This happens all the time. Don't worry.
It does, man. Favorite artist right now? I'd say Wynton Marsalis.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Very good.
Mhm.
Who's the most, not necessarily the most accomplished musician, but who's the musician that you've enjoyed collaborating with the most? It was just fun.
Okay, so okay. And that would have to be Yo-Yo Ma. And, I'm not even sure he would remember the performance, but he's the one person, because I typically don't get starstruck because I think people are people. But when I met Yo-Yo Ma and being a cellist, it was like, hi, this is Yo-Yo Ma. We're going to be doing a performance together. I was like, hi, I play cello. Like literally that's what I said. Like, how dumb is that? It was a really important performance though. It was the performance with President Obama after the marathon bombing. So that it was that one in the Cathedral Holy Cross down in Boston. Really important performance. Really important performance. But yeah, that was I was starstruck on that one.
I remember that whole week. I could almost by the minute working in a newsroom in Boston, being at the marathon that when the bombs exploded, knowing people that were affected by it and hurt by it. I remember that speech that President Obama gave at the time. It was stirring. Mm-hmm. I remember people being very thrilled and honored and pleased that he was there. That must have been, you must have had all that going through your mind. What is that like, playing an instrument with that as the backdrop, with those emotions running through you?
Yeah, it was pretty intense. It was pretty intense. It was actually like our 5th performance in 2 days though. We were down in New York, we gave a performance, and then we came up and we did a performance for GBH and recorded a performance for that. And then we did a performance for the Harvard Business School, like outside. And I think that was one of the most touching moments because it was after a really tough 24 hours. Not just, from the marathon bombing 24 hours, but for us physically, emotionally, because of all the performing we'd had to do. And then to wake up the next day and then go to the cathedral, and Obama was there and others. And that was something else. It's one of those performances that obviously I'll never forget. It's one of those moments that I'll never forget because you want to always be able to do something to help in situations like that. And the way that I know how to help best is through healing through music, and to be able to actually put that into practice at that moment was quite special.
When you know that you have such a talent, and that cello in your hands is just so powerful, is there
actually I was conducting Yo-Yo Ma on that one.
Oh, you
wasn't
conducting.
Yeah, I was conducting that performance. So, yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's it. That's a whole different perspective. Wow.
Yeah.
That is pressure.
Thanks. Yeah.
It was pressure before. Now I'm kind of. Do you ever get a look from Yo-Yo Ma of approval, or?
Yes, he was. Of course, he was so gracious. He was so gracious. I mean, he's just one of the most special human beings on the planet. Yeah, he was incredible. I would love to play with him. That would be, obviously a dream. I probably couldn't do it. I tell you, in that moment, it would be easier for me to conduct than it would be for me to play.
Really?
I think I would have had problems playing, but conducting is much easier for me to do in that moment.
You're overthinking it, maybe, or I don't know.
Maybe, but my skill and my craft now is as a conductor. It's not as much as a cellist. Like I'm not as practiced as I need to be, and that sort of thing. Yeah, right.
I know. I'm pretty sure you could hang when the moment came, but
I'd be nervous. My hands sweating, sticky. Yeah,
it's fascinating to watch. Okay, we derailed rapid fire for a minute, so we'll bring it back here. What is like the style, a genre of music, maybe a song, whatever? What is it that people would not, don't associate with classical music? What are you like drawn to outside of that, spectrum?
For me, I'd say things like bluegrass, for example, is really interesting. I also really like pop music, R&B, in just kind of trying to dissect it. And there's some interesting parallels with when you're working with popular music and you're working with like Renaissance music, that the rehearsal process for those two can be really closer to the same than what you'd assume, right? Because you have to work there's lots of lines and detail work in Renaissance music, but in Stevie Wonder, for example, like if you really listen to what Stevie does, there's so much detail in there. And to get that detail in a chorus, it takes kind of a similar process. So I find that to be fascinating.
Yeah, it is. Yes, well said. All right, I can see we're going to see a bluegrass addition to the one on the other side.
You know what? Maybe that'd be awesome. I'd be for that.
Taking it up a little bit. All right.
Yeah.
Let's go really random. Favorite class in school back in the day?
Math.
Favorite food?
Ooh. Fried chicken. How stereotypical.
You're a traveler. Favorite city in the world?
Oh boy, favorite city. Sydney, Australia is pretty cool. So that's the first one that pops in my head. But Paris is also wonderful as well.
All right. So Australian Open happening right now in the tennis world.
Yep.
So those lockdowns are crazy. Have you seen that at all?
Yeah, we have some friends in Australia, and man, they're pretty intense. But it worked.
Yeah, I mean, good for them.
Yeah, their choirs are singing.
That is true. But it's like some of these Americans who went over there and they're like, we literally aren't being let out of our little hotel room for 2 weeks. And yeah, that's how it is.
Yep.
All right, we did favorite food. What is the favorite venue that you've ever played?
Ooh, Royal Albert Hall, I'd say.
Okay. Favorite album of all time?
I'm not sure I have one. Favorite album, the one that I go back to. You know what? This is Fresh Prince. DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince's first album.
I know it well.
Yep. That one I do keep going back to that one. I still have the CD.
What a fast! I was reading up on him recently because they did like the Fresh Prince reunion, and they're all older now, of course. I mean, I was really into the Fresh Prince television show back in the day, and DJ Jazzy Jeff was on there. He's he's got stories for days.
Yeah. This is some really interesting people, man. I'm telling you.
You did Yo-Yo Ma. What is is there another person that hit you and you said, I cannot believe I'm on stage with, or just, how did I get here? Is there another musician of that caliber that you were a little bit starstruck?
Yeah, I mean, yes, there's lots. But I did a concert with Leslie Odom Jr. This is before Hamilton. And that was really cool. That was really cool. And then obviously to see him take off, through Hamilton, and now he's just taken off. He's pretty amazing. And so looking back, it's like, wow, that's actually kind of cool.
That's funny. There's so many people that are like, it's almost like disdain when people have just realized him after Hamilton. They're like, he was really great before that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's what made him. It wasn't easy to perform with him, but it's way more difficult to get him now than it was before Hamilton, and was just as great.
Yeah,
and he was just looking for opportunities.
And a great great backstage as well. A good person.
Oh yeah. I'll tell you, most of the people that I've worked with, and I won't say the names of the ones that aren't like that way, but he is amazing. He's an amazing person, on stage, backstage. Just love working with him in every capacity.
Very cool. All right. Well, H&H, what do we? I mean, there's no real shows for a little while. Hopefully the vaccines can happen. How can people stay connected with you? Streaming, anything we should know?
Yeah, H&H has got a couple of really cool things on their website. They have an H&H radio channel, a couple of radio channels, and just kind of get over there and pop on to the website and listen to that. They're also doing some live stream concerts here in the spring. So if you get over to the website, you can see those. And like I said, Harry Christophers is his last year as artistic director and principal conductor, and not this year, but next year. And so looking forward to that. And hopefully we're post-pandemic, so we can really, do some really big things.
Well, I'll hope for that. Anthony Trecek-King, man, this was an absolute pleasure. I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much for doing it.
Of course, my pleasure.
And we'll see you back out there soon leading this thing. And man, I can't wait to get back and see some live music. That'll be a good time.
Yep. Sounds good.
Thanks, Anthony.
All right.
All right. Anthony Trecek-King. How cool was that? I really enjoyed it. Always fun to kind of meet those people that you wouldn't just kind of stumble on. Handel in Haydn Society. He was just named the resident conductor, Dr. Anthony Trecek-King. So pretty cool right there. Hope you enjoyed that. Interesting stuff. Interesting guy. Very cool. Be good, everybody. Have a great weekend. My name is Drew Moholland, live from Drew's house, looking out at the snow. A lot of snow on the ground from the other day. Hopefully that goes away. Bye-bye, everybody.